Tell me when you're ready, Corey.
I will let you know here.
Andrew, you're playing hurt then? Are you good now?
Playing hurt.
Playing hurt? All right.
For 15.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, you can stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good morning, and we'll start off with any public comment. No public, we'll move on to the agenda.
No changes today, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Andrew.
Mr. Chair, I will move the agenda as printed.
Motion made by Schmidt,
I'll second.
second by Bredesen. Any questions, comments? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Consent agenda. Andrew.
Yes, so we have approval of the October 1st board meeting minutes, approval of the Health and Human Services County and Hospital accounts payable, approval of the appointment to the Economic Development Authority Board, resolution for the VFW Post 2818 offsite gambling permit for February 8th, 2025 at the Lake Ripley Park, approve agreement with Bolton and Mank for the intersection control evaluation at Highway 12 and CASA 34. That is the consent agenda.
Thank you, Andrew.
I'm going the wrong way.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion made by Johnson,
Holberg seconds.
second by Olberg. Any questions on the consent agenda?
Just the comment, the EDA board appointment, we're actually, that was gonna come ahead a couple weeks ago, but, we actually had another, interested party, so
Oh.
we actually had two coming out of that Cosmos area, so that was appreciated, and also I just, while we're talking about appointments, I know the HRA board would come for somebody more for my area, but, I guess, but, if we know of anyone, help on HRA board, so.
You still go to those meetings.
When I'm able to, yeah.
Okay, any other questions on the consent agenda? With that said, there's a resolution. Corey?
Commissioner Olberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein.
Yes. And with the rest of the consent agenda, we have a motion and second. All those in favor of the rest of the consent agenda, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, Greg Schultz.
She was interested.
Morning, Greg Schultz, Land Use Director. This morning I got a couple items for the agenda. The first one is the Craig and Bobby McIndan's landscaping project. This is on Lake Washington. We're gonna be doing about 125 feet of riprap, a wall, about 60 yards of material to moved or brought in, 50 yards of riprap, 57 yards of boulders. For a total of about 167 yards, be a 120-foot boulder wall at the top of the contour as well. Emily Wolf of the DNR actually gave landscaping as a go-ahead for this project, so she contacted the contractor directly, didn't contact me, so that's a note to have on here. I'm not sure if I got in the notes here or not, but she's in favor of the project, so. So we got.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the application for conditional use permit number 16486 to move more than 10 cubic yards of material within the shore impact zone and 50 cubic yards of material in the shoreland district of the general development Lake Washington with conditions.
All right, motion made by Johnson,
I'll second that.
second by Bredesen. Any questions on this one? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Next.
Next item I have is the final plat of Wendell Junction. This rezoning and preliminary plat was actually passed back in June 18th of 2024. This is an old farm site that got split up, so during the split process, it lost its eligibility. So then she went back and rezoned just the actual site where the building sites were, got rezoned to R2, and it got in the preliminary plat passed for just a one-lot plat is what it is. She can put a house on there at some time. Title policy opinion been submitted, property was reviewed by Emily Wood. Comment from Wood has found the title work was satisfactory. So just with certain direction for signatures when the final plat is recorded. Actually has 2 accesses off of Highway 15 already, so that didn't have to be established. Yeah. It voted with a 7-0 vote, Planning Commission.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I move to approve the final plat application for a one-lot plat of Wendell Junction located in the north one half of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 28, Township 119, Range 29 in Dassel Township.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
motion made by Bredesen, second by Oberg. Any questions? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Sharon Early.
Good morning, Sharon Early, County Treasurer. I'm here to give an annual report for my department. So, starting with the responsibilities of the Treasurer's Office, it's kind of broken down in 3 areas. There's financial, and vital statistics, and I will go through each one of those. Starting with the first one under financial, which is receipts. The receipts on monies are collected by any department within the county, and the county hospital are processed through our office. These funds are receipted and coded with an account code for each item that comes in, and those are set up in my office. And these account codes are used by the departments to track in their budget. And the codes that are assigned are called COFARs, the County Financial Accounting Reporting Standard, which is important. So when you go through the audit, everybody's coding their things in the same kind of criteria so that when an audit is done, they know where those funds are to belong. The receipting program in this year, at the beginning of the year, we switched from the CPT cash register program to an IFS, which is our integrated financial system cash drawer, due to upcoming phase out of the I-Series and they won't be supporting that program or rewriting it. So we decided just to transition that at the start of the year so that we could have that taken care of prior to no support for the other thing. And we worked with the departments on that. That wasn't as big on the department as it was within the Treasurer's Office, but the transition for this program went pretty well. So we're satisfied with that, what we have there. So in 2023, on the payable side, there was a new accounts payable program that we went with, which was AP Workflow, and that was moving it from a paper system to a paperless system. And we chose this application because quite a few departments already had application extender, which you have to have a license for, and it mirrored into that, so that way we didn't have to buy any additional licenses because the majority of the departments were already using that for their document storage. So the paper process, this was a cumbersome process, so I'm just gonna go through what was done before. So an invoice would come in the mail or be printed, and then a paper claim form, similar to the ones that you fill out to submit, would be attached to the top of each one with the descriptions and the account codes that the department wanted those funds to be paid out of. And then they would give it to their department head. The department head would sign off on it. Then it would be brought to the Treasurer's Office. Then my staff would enter them into the financial systems or reprint everything that was on that top claim form into the system. And then, after board approval, we would print the checks, then the checks, we made cover sheets for them that went on top of each one of those claim forms, and then we'd scan them into the AP or AP application extender, I should say. And then we would index them, so we would have to key in the vendor number, the dollar amount, the warrant number, that type of thing, so that it becomes a searchable document later. So with the automation of the paper flow, the process starts the same. It's either by email or mail, but then you scan, the department that receives the bill scans it into the AP workflow and puts the codes on it and the description, and it's entered individually. This avoids that claim form because that's already built in and it's typed in there. And then they electronically submit it to their department head. And then they get an email and it sits in there until they have time to go in, and then they can approve their payables. And as soon as they hit approval, it automatically gets put in an inbox in our treasure system. And so then we there go and pull up that payable and view everything. So instead of rekeying it at this point, we're just viewing to make sure there's no typos, that they put it in the proper account code, and things like that, to verify that that's the best place for that to be paid out of. And then, again, it comes, so once those are submitted, then we make that batch, it comes to board to be approved, and after that, we run the checks. And then, when that happens, and we move the batch over, the whole thing's moved over, and there's no scanning, no cover sheet, no data entry or keying and indexing, it's all there. So that has been a big plus and saved on a lot of time. With this program, they also can catch duplicate payments. So if somebody were to enter the vendor number with the same invoice number and a dollar amount, it would say, hey, this was already paid because it's in our system. Are you sure you want to? Some businesses, have the same monthly payment every time, but they usually have a different invoice number, so that would be fine. But if they sent it with the same invoice number or something like that, it would catch that and say, this has already been paid. It kind of flashes, and then you can do some further checking or override it if, yes, that is the intent, we're paying it. So that's a benefit of that. The county staff was great to work with when we implemented the system. It did take a lot of time, and we've heard great feedback from it now. Liking it at the first time, it was kind of something different and new, and we tried to roll it out to some of the smaller departments so we could kind of find the hiccups and stuff like that before we moved it out countywide, but it's fully implemented now.
Sharon, if I may ask a question,
Sure.
You said cut checks. Do we have a lot of folks that are still getting checks, or do we do some ACH or?
We do some ACH, but the majority are still checks.
Okay.
So that was gonna be my question. On a regular bill that's the same, do we do ACH or do we not have any that are?
On a regular what?
Well, say a light bill, is that ACH or?
Nope, that's a paper check.
So is there rules about what we can do that with? Because I find it's easier just to do ACH.
We can do it, it's a matter of the system being able to do that. So we have an electronic series where we run numbers through that. The piece with that is you have to do a lot of babysitting on the front side to get the correct account codes and that kind of thing. And so there is that capability. We looked at it previously, but then there was other software changes that we were doing that we have implemented first.
But it's a possibility with this system and probably something you will use in the, because obviously you don't have to cut a check, you don't have to mail a
Right,
check.
yeah,
So the bank charges us for ACH though, correct?
right. Yeah,
That,
there's so much a line item and.
so much a line item.
Yeah, there's an
I don't
overall
think it's
cost
much.
Isn't it?
for
Well, not
the-
at the Legion, it's not.
it depends, it goes on volume, so there's
Yeah.
so much per line item, and then there's a set dollar amount just to do it, and then if you have one, or if you have, 50, then they just charge you by that amount.
You know, you're not having anybody write the check, you're probably not having, you don't have to mail it, it's all employee staffed. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next area, payroll. Currently, we have 207 full-time people, 41 part-time, and 20 seasonal. We have 3 different timekeeping systems that we pull into our payroll. E-time is through the CPT, which the majority of the employees use. There's RT Vision, which is for the highway, parks, and ditch. And that, I believe they do some cost accounting with that. And then there's VCS, which is the sheriff's department, and that's also a timekeeping and scheduling program together. So those three merge into our payroll system. Then the employee benefit options plan, I just think this is kind of interesting. In 2024, we have 79 plan options that we input into the CPT program. And the example of that is like, there's, say, dental plan, you have a high and a low plan, and so there's two options on what you want, but within that plan, then you can have an employee or an employee with children, or an employee and family, or an employee and spouse. So there's 4 different options for each of those programs, so you take that and you times it by 2, so now you have 8 different fee schedules for one benefit. And PEEP is another example I just thought was interesting. It has 17 different options for that because you have the VIVA, the HSA, the non-HSA, the individual, the family, and then the combinations of doing those can create those other plans.
But once it's set up, it's the same every pay period, right? I mean, you don't have to go in and change it every time.
Correct, unless there's any kind of changes.
When it's set up
somebody
for the
starting
year,
to-
like this
yeah.
time of year, then
Yeah.
you get it all
So
set
it's
up.
more like this time with open enrollment and
Right.
stuff like that, that it's,
Right.
Are most of our employees on direct deposit on their paychecks?
yes.
Okay.
That is a requirement
It is,
we
okay.
have. I mean, that first one we run just as a pre-note, the first time, so we give every person that either changed their account or is new to the county, then they get a check the first time while we pre-note to make sure the routing and account number actually work, and then the next time around it. And if it doesn't bounce back, then it's to that, and if it is, then we correct it and do another pre-note just to make sure we're getting the correct
Okay.
bank account.
Thank you.
All right. We have contract and policy groups. We have non-union, and then we have 8 unions. The contracts have different severances, benefit rates, and shift differential. Then we have performance pay, which is manually entered because that varies depending on how those, and that's for our non-union employees. And then the unions are still on a step increase table. So we have 5 different step increase tables, depending on which one the union agreed to. With those, they also, with the unions, they do retro calculations. And one of the longest ones, so just as an example, was that the union didn't settle until after July. So then from January to July, we had to go back and calculate for 27 different employees what they would have made during that time frame to go back to the first. And then, and if they had any step increases or that kind of thing during that time frame. So that one was kind of an exaggerated one, but just one that was of note. And then there's also, if there's retro shift differential, it has to be applied to the employee.
It's one you remember, because it wasn't fun.
No.
7 months.
Head scratchers.
Yeah.
Make sure you have it right, that kind of thing, but, yeah. Okay, the investments. So I make the investments for the county, the hospital, and then EDA. The depositories that are listed, they're board approved on the first board meeting of the month, and those are what I'm permitted to invest in. Currently use 2 brokers and some investments with local banks. The investment strategy I use mirrors the investment policy. It's safety, liquidity, diversification, and yield. And I have it structured on a laddered style portfolio so that it just kind of keeps rolling, so that when there's payables that are due or payroll, we know we have some investments rolling off to cover those if needed. We consider short-term under 12 months and long-term between 1 and 5 years. So the environment over that past 18 months was the strategy has changed to be a little bit shorter portfolio due to the spending down of our fund balances and the remodeling project. So we were roll off in the maturities without reinvesting them, just to pool the cash in a sense so that we would have it available when we started our project. Because some of them that are out a year, 18 months, 2 years, that kind of thing. So that was a strategy that changed from what was originally done. And there was great short-term interest rates that were captured because of of the rapid increase in the Fed fund rate over the past 2 years. It got as high as 5.70, so we benefited by having money shorter term in that. And the rates are starting to lower now. The Fed fund dropped by 50 basis points on September 18th, and that's the first drop in 2 years.
So, Mr. Chair, when you say you make the investments, you do, but don't you also have a committee that you meet with? A couple, maybe Sprider and Leisman from the hospital, are they, is that the one they're involved in
We
or
do
no?
meet with the hospital annually.
And then you have somebody from here, I mean, you don't just decide, you have a committee that plans and makes recommendations, correct? Of where you're gonna invest.
Well, yeah, so the depositories that are board approved are where we can invest. And
Right.
then we review where our investments are at, but the strategy is I get to determine.
So,
Or have determined, so like, we know, like, when the building project was coming up and they had said, well, we're gonna spend fund balance down, then it's like, okay, well, then we know we have to roll some off.
so
that
you're
we have
making
funds
the
available.
decisions for the hospital funding where that money goes?
No, I
Oh,
do their
okay.
investments, well, I see what
I'm
you did for
just
the
trying to,
hospital.
cause where you say,
Yes, because the CFO works with us, because we are a county entity, or the hospital is, they have to run their funds through
right,
there.
no, I understand that, but
Yes.
I understood over all these years that I've been chair that you have a meeting with, or they do, maybe you're not, you're there, right?
No,
You're
not at the hospital one.
You're not at that
No,
one.
so then
And
we-
they never meet with the county? What am I,
We
I'm
have a-
missing
We have a
something here.
joint investment committee.
There you
that
go.
includes both the county and the hospital, and then at that, PFM and Sharon provide an update on what
Right.
happens with the investments.
Okay,
But but that committee is not involved on the day-to-day basis. of
no, I
determining
understand that,
When are we gonna buy a CD, when are we
Right.
gonna sell a CD, yes.
but they lay some groundwork out, correct, for what
Sure.
kind of return?
And that's
Well,
the policy that Sharon identified of the things that we're
Right.
looking for, so, absolutely.
And during the meetings, then Sharon gives us
Right,
kind of when things are,
I just
when
thought
you have
maybe, I thought
CDs
maybe you weren't
renewed.
meeting anymore or something, and nobody told me. You know
and-
me.
And
be
with the
similar to Edward Jones, but not quite.
Ed,
With the hospital, they report back, or so like when they have those, and then I tell them when their investments are coming
Right.
up, then they get back to me.
I'm not questioning, I just wanted to make sure that we were still doing those things, so, thank you.
Sure. So the environment over the last 18 months, the strategy has changed. And so as we've been rolling those off to make the funds available, we've gotten those good rates. And then again, the Fed has just lowered for the first time in 2 years. So where we're seeing our investments now, this has already affected the market, so as soon as they talk about lowering rates, they already drop them prior to the meeting, but, as of October 2nd, these are where the money market rate is at a 4.96, the CDs for a 6-month is at a 4.55, and the 9-month is a 4.0, and then you can see the years, 2 year and 3 years, so how they kind of have gone down already.
And we try to use local county banks somewhere in the county, right, for our
Some,
CDs?
yeah.
Do they have,
The-
do you know, I can't, just refresh my memory, what banks we're in?
Well, so that was kind of the strategy that we went, because banks weren't really interested in it when the rates were lower, because they
Right.
they were flush with cash. So we probably have maybe minor, like 3 or 4, something like that, that are at a local
Okay.
bank currently,
And the rest are,
through a corporate, yeah. So this slide shows the future interest rate projection. So they're saying by 2025, it's going to be to 3%. So the blue line on this chart shows the past history, so you can see where it was flat in 2021 and then went up step by step all the way from 22 to 23, kind of held out there for a while. And then the projected tan dot line is the one that's going down to the side. That's where we're currently starting to see that, and that's where they're projecting it to go, and so kind of at that rate too. So that starts from January 25 and through July of 26. So the next 18 months look like that.
Sharon, how many CDs do we currently have?
Currently about 3 or 4.
Okay,
Yeah. It's most of it. We have a lot of CDs through brokers, but locally, it's that, or are you talking in?
I meant how many different CDs, because I think that's kind of interesting to know that there's a certain number of dollars you can put to each one.
Right.
Yeah. I
Keep
mean,
us on a conservative basis.
Yes, because you can't do any
Insured.
CD over 250,000, and depending on how the interest is paid out on that one, so say you had a 2-year investment, but they don't pay out till the end, then you have to buy it like at 240. But if they pay out every 6 months, then you could probably buy it at 244. If they pay out, monthly, then you can buy a higher amount. So each CD is kind of set up differently, but yes, you still have to live within the FDIC.
And that's 250 each account, no matter where
Right,
they're listed.
right.
Do we do any investment with the Magic Fund?
Yes, we do. That's what, we have quite a bit of it in the Magic Fund.
Okay.
Our liquid money is there, and then we have quite a few CDs through them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's changed over the years more, hasn't it? We use more Magic Fund than
We
we
used to
or
use a lot
not?
more local banks
That's what I
until
thought.
they didn't want their, like, I'm sorry,
They
we're
didn't
flush
need
with
us,
cash
yeah.
and that kind of thing. So then we started doing more on the investments side to BFM.
And PFM comes in kind of annual, give us, or when we ask.
That's part of that joint investment committee.
Right,
Yeah, they come in and present to the financial.
cool.
Okay, this next slide is, this is the effect the rates have had for Meeker for the last 5 years. So rates were flat, as you can see from the chart before, for 2021. And so the first line, so we'll start with 2020. The interest that was actually earned was $426,871. The average rate on that investment throughout that year was 0.88. I had budgeted $380,000. So the second year, now you have to keep in mind that when you're budgeting this, you're doing it 6 months before the year starts that you're showing, and then ending 18 months later. So what you're doing in June will affect what the coming year from January to December. So it's a budget or an estimate is kind of what you're thinking the markets will project or that kind of stuff. So in 2021, markets, the rates stayed flat. So the average rate was a 0.51, and so I had budgeted 200,000, and we earned 188.26. In 22, the actual earnings we got, now this is when it started to tick up, because about July, then they suddenly decided that, hey, we have to fix this, and so they're moving up. That was, we got 445,621, which was an average of a 2.6 rate. And then we estimated, or the budget amount was 125. So because the market rate changed, that affected that. 23 is where it was blown out. It continued just to climb almost straight up, as you could see on that previous chart where it was. 150,000 was budgeted based on around a 2% thing. And we got 1.4 million in interest, which is about a 5.32 average investment. Now, in 2022, we received ARPA funds, which was of 2.2 million, so that kind of ticked that up where we wouldn't have had those, but we had them held, and while we figured out what we were doing, we were earning interest on that amount. And then in the latter part of 23, we got our bond proceeds too, so that was also, funds that we didn't have, but helped with that. So currently to 24, we have about 659,000, that's as of the end of September, and the average rate was 5.03, and an estimate is 850,000 is a goal for that. And then for 2025, I budgeted 695,000, and we'll kind of go, should go to the next slide to show. Okay, this slide is this is a committee on the Federal Reserve, and they call this here the dot plot. And there's 19 members that are on this committee, and they predict where they foresee or forecast interest rates will be going in the future. So in 2024, if you look straight up, there's all their dots are where, so it's somewhere between 4% and 5%. So that's what they think this year is going to be. In 2025. They have 2 that think it's going to be 4% or higher. About 13 of them think it's going to be in the range of 3, and 2 of them think it's going to be lower than 3%. So that's just, and each time they have these come out a couple times a year, and then the dots all move by what has changed, but so this is just a snap in time, and this one was September 18th. So relatively soon, but as soon as something fluctuates, that changes this whole thing. So as you see, their projections for 26 now. more of them are thinking it's going to be under 3%, 10 of them are under 3, and then 9 at 3%, and they don't have anybody in the 4% range. So if these projections are realized, this affects the county's interest rate, so just so you know, kind of how it was working to us in the favor. The other way, it can go the other way too, so you assume that it's gonna be sitting here and then something tanks and then your interest rates drop and then you're dealing with that. And with lower fund balances by what we're using off in the project and lower interest rates, that's going to look differently in the coming years.
So what's their accuracy over the years? Cause I don't know how they, you know.
Better than the weather, man.
Huh? Better than the weatherman? That isn't saying much. There's a lot of bottom lines looking really good the last couple of years, if you notice on a lot of boards with any money that are gonna, I think, be looking the other direction here real. You know, those days are gonna be over, obviously, but I don't know how they predict this.
Well, I mean, these are the people who are setting these rates, right? So, and then,
So-
but they react to what's occurring in the broader economy. And so, you know, they, I think, are certainly looking to get the rates a little bit lower because they recognize the impact that it has on economic growth, but at the same time, they want to ensure that they're controlling inflation, so that's kind of how we end up with.
Well, so the word on the street was a quarter, right, when the feds lowered, and it went half.
They went a half because they saw that the
Yeah.
employment rate was going.
So it's not like a crystal ball by any means, but I think it's kind of an interesting.
Interesting
Where
forecast.
people are targeting, the ones that are really looking closely at this type of
Who
thing.
makes up this pool of people?
They
Are they
actually,
East Coast, West Coast, Midwestern, what?
that I don't know.
The
who's on. I just know
globalists.
the 19 that sit on it for the
It's-
Federal Reserve, but where they're,
It's all the Federal Reserve banks from around the country, so like the Minneapolis Federal Reserve has a seat on this committee.
Vatican.
The Vatican.
I don't believe the Vatican does.
Let's start some rumors, the globalists.
I might be wrong.
I shouldn't say.
That was a joke, folks. The Vatican really doesn't.
Yeah.
Glad you said that, not me, Steve.
All right. Then the next piece is the financial audits. So our audit is done for the calendar year, so January through December. Our audit starts usually the November prior to the current year, and then it ends sometime in August or September of the following year. So it's a 9 to 10 month process. Clifton Nelson Allen is our current audit firm. My department manages the overall audit by facilitating to help ensure that other departments are providing the information to CLA on a timely basis. So they'll reach directly out to those departments to get the information they need. If they make multiple requests and they're not hearing anything back, then they'll send it to me and say, hey, can you help us with this or that kind of thing. And then CLA directly works with HHS and Public Works. So they meet with them and review
And the audit is once a year?
once a year.
And we work with the same firm for a number of years, or does this get switched around? How do we determine?
We have worked with this one probably 3 years now.
Okay.
It used to be the state could only do it,
State was the only one
and
we
they
had
changed
prior
the
to
law
that.
and we started bidding. We bid it every couple of years
I
or
think
so,
it's
don't we?
2 years.
Yeah.
I'd say
Yeah.
2 years. That we,
When I first started, you had to have the state no matter what.
we approve it every 2
Yeah.
years, I think. The
Yeah, I
board
think
approves
we
it.
approve
did
our
a-
contract every year with them, or what they're going to do, or in the pricing and that kind of thing. The 2-year piece was a definite with the state, because
Oh,
you
they're-
had to give them a 2-year notice.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and this year, the hospital has had a couple different auditors, and this year they went with CLA by chance, and so it worked because then we could pull our 2 audits together instead of having a third party, which, I mean, it worked before too, but it was just a lot more questions, where now they ask those questions internally with each other without it coming to us or to Nicole at the time, you know, like this here kind of thing, so,
Yeah,
that
we
was
had
it.
Ide Bailey, but we had to switch because of some conflicts, so.
yeah.
So, would it be a fair assumption to say that most of the information they get from us is electronic?
Yes. All of it's electronic, or all that we submitting. I don't know what the other departments do, but yes, we submit all ours electronically. They have like a hub that you can they'll make their request and you might get an email stating that this is a new request or that kind of thing. But then when they need a report of some sort, then you find it and then you upload it to area there so that they know where to find it next.
So if you were to take a guess, how much time does you or your staff put in from our part to the audit?
For the whole time frame,
Just a guess.
yeah, I would,
just-
I mean, because during the heavier times, you could be working half your week, so 20 hours a week on that. But like at the start, it's not too bad. You might work 3 days on it, then you get a little bit of a break, and then it comes back. And then when they want their first stuff, then you're working on it for 4 weeks straight, where they're trying to, but they understand our ebb and flows with collection of taxes too, so they're not asking for stuff in May and that kind of stuff. So we have, and then there's a 60-day window, so you have to wait to get your accruals and stuff done and calculated. So then after that, then we kind of hit it hard again in March and April, and then they kind of wane off, and then they pick back up. But we know what they're going to be looking at, so when we have some downtime, it's like, hey, let's work on this report. So when they request it, it's ready, or we'll just upload it and then tell them it's there because we know they're gonna request it at some point. So we try to keep it flowing the whole time so that we're not holding up their work. So if they're like, hey, we wanna work on Meeker this week, they have things available to work on, yeah.
Okay.
And that's where, when they don't, or they're getting hung up, like, hey, we can't go any further than this, we need this piece from Health and Human Services, you know, and we haven't gotten back, can you see what you can do on that? And then we'll like, yeah, sure, we can check, see what it is. And most of the time, it's like, oh, I didn't know that was required right away, yeah, we can get that, or that kind of thing. Or we can't get that because we're waiting on this, well, then we just tell them that we need this other piece back before we can wrap that up. And just to keep them aware so that they know we're trying to constantly keep things moving, yeah.
And you can have these every year, and they're not a silver bullet. I serve on a board that has found a lot of struggles and had these audits every year. You know which one I'm talking about, see, and they're getting to the bottom of it, but CJMTS. So now they had to do a forensic study. And, you know, we as board members approve it every year, but we only see what they are able to provide us.
Yeah.
So, and this is all working out fine, there was no fraud or anything, but it's been a big mess for a lot of months, and I think a lot of the board members took some ideas back to their boards to say, no, that this isn't a silver, you know, this doesn't tell you everything you need to know, in the end, you still, so, it's good.
They'll run tests, and I'm not alluding to what they found, but like, so they run our payables and they'll ask for like 80 payables throughout the year. They randomly pick, so then you have to provide it and then you send them each one of those copies or that kind of thing. Or that AP workflow worked out perfectly because it's already all electronic, so you can just send each file. But then if they test those, and if there isn't something like the approval wasn't on there, or there wasn't a date on this, or this was paid after 35 days, there's things that they look for. And if it's not, so say out of that pool, we only had 3, and they're like, that's a good enough, we did a sample, everything looks good. If in there they found maybe 15 or 20, they're like, we want another 80. So then they'll continue broadening their sample until they figure out what the problem is, or, oh, it was just those here, we checked these other 80 and we didn't find anything, so the majority of them is there. So if they find something, then they broaden it and keep broadening it until they figure out.
But my point is, they don't always find it, because that happened here, and they had to go back. So, yeah, I
They're not
mean,
looking at everything.
they're not looking at everything they can, and all these grants, right? And if a grant comes in late, then you're taken from over here and try to, and it just got, there's things that Joint Powers Board had no way of knowing. Till now, and it's gonna be fine, we're not missing anything, but the auditors don't wanna sign up till the forensic audit is done. So it's been, you know, we're getting late and it's been expensive. And it's odd, so you can't always, I'm just saying, you can't always assume because there's an audit that you're getting everything. You hope you are, obviously, so, and I think you do mostly, but this can happen, so.
Everything was fine when I was on that.
I know, and then when you gave that to me at my first meeting, in my mind, I was going, did he know this? I was like lost.
No, and I know when they made it, they had issues years prior, I mean, not,
Right.
quite a few years back, they had a similar issue. And they had that corrected, and I thought things.
I know, and you know, you just get kinda,
But you
sit back
don't
and-
know.
No, you
as
don't
on
know
a-
what you
as
don't
a
know.
Commissioner, you don't know the fine details and I know on the fire department too, we go audit every year too, and then the laws change a little bit too, so there's different things they ask for next year that they didn't ask for last year, and you need to go back and have this signed or that done, things that you learn along the way, so there is a lot of 9 to 10 months for an audit, you're auditing year round.
Yeah, because you start the next contract in November, so you get that brief window. But you kind of alluded into my next thing is every year there's Government Standards Accounting Board, which is called GASB, and they have new standards to implement. So in 2022, they had GASB 87, which was the lease of all properties, which was something we didn't really, everybody had their own leases, but it wasn't in one area. And so they wanted these leases, so they looked at them to see if they're tangible interest. So like Central Jobs and Services, our rent agreement, or New Beginnings, or the Department of Corrections and the courthouse, anybody that pays us rent, it'll be on our copiers for our next audit, because we started that contract in there. They put a value on that and then depreciate it and figure out if it's a viable one to include in the audit. And so that one was done in 22. The one we worked on this year then was the lease of softwares, and that was GASB 96. And so any subscription-based software like CPT or the IFS, the Integrated Financial Fiddler and a recorder program, those had to go through the same thing. We had to get all those agreements, figure out if this is something that would be something that should be included in the audit and go through the worksheets. So that took a lot of time and work, just because it's never been done before. Everybody had their own leases, whatever one they had, it was housed there. So to implement those, we involved every department in the county. We took a step-by-step approach that allowed them time to do this. So like I discussed it with the department heads at a department head meeting in December, and then requested all those agreements by February. So gave them a couple months to find their things. And then my department reviewed each one of them and prepared the documentation to present to CLA. And then with part of their audit, they wanted to see the ones that we didn't think qualified first and the ones that we did, just to make sure we had an exclusive piece. So those were very time-consuming pieces initially.
You and I have had this discussion. I've always been afraid to ask how many software leases we actually have, because we see a lot of those come through, and there are so many different ones for each department, so.
I would have to look at the full list.
I did not expect you to know,
But
I'm
that's,
just saying.
okay.
I'm just curious.
Because now we kind of have them all together, so.
Yeah, we could provide that information. Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah.
it's staggering
Curiosity.
sometimes. when you
It's
think
not
about it.
cheap either.
No, it's not cheap.
All right, I think we're done with that. And then, so for our 2023 audit, which was just completed, the opinion that was issued was a modified, or they consider a clean financial statements, so that was great to hear. Internal controls deficiencies, they put down lack of segregation of duties. We received this finding every single year just because of the size of our offices. So you have some departments that are working like land and use, where Monica brings in the money, she does the reporting, and then she gives it to the treasurer. They would want 2 or 3 people to be doing that type of thing. So just highway, one accountant out there, that kind of thing. So they check for those types of things. They know that is a possibility but they know of our size that you're not gonna have 2 people doing one job, just so you have that checks and balances. But, so that's why they just indicate that. They completed the Minnesota Legal Compliance Checklist, which is about 4 or 5 pages long, and they didn't find any issues there. And the single audit is done on federal programs, where the expense is more than $750,000 a year. And so after that, they pick 2 programs that are federally funded, and then they track them or really dig into the weeds on those. This year, they tested the 3.776,094 is the dollar amount they tested, and the 2 programs they picked was Medicaid clustered, and that one was $891,000 of that. found that on the fourth court reporting that was to the state, that DHS 2550 is a state report, did not reflect the expenditures. And that was due to the HHS financial supervisor leaving and then not being, and no one was filled, so they didn't have somebody in that position to do that reporting. So I believe it was Paul that checked with the state, like, we don't know how we're gonna pull this information for you. And they said, well, just report your third quarter again, and then you have up to a year to make those adjustments. So then when you get someone in there and they can figure that piece out and do that report for you. So they did do that, but it just happened to be the fourth quarter, so it was at the end of the year, which was part of that audit, so they had to notate that. But then in the comments, it's like, well, it has been adjusted, so there's nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, it wasn't intentional, it was just what they had to do because there was nobody in that position at that time. The other one they did was the COVID-19 Corona State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, also known as ARPA. And they had no issues found with that, so that one was clean. Any questions on that? All right, so moving on to property taxes. Meeker County mails 17,000 tax statements each year. These are mailed in March, usually around the third week of the month. We must have them out by the 31st. That's by state statute. And we do now mail the tax statements with Missy's evaluation notices so that we saved on mailing costs, so they come together in the same envelope. There are 4 collection dates on May 15th for real estate. That's both residential and agriculture, and August 31st is the mobile home tax collection for the first half, and then the 15th is residential real estate, which we are currently in. And then November 15th is the agriculture with the second half of the mobile home tax. So, and with these, I've advertised on, for the 3 main collections, the May, October, and November, in the surrounding newspapers and on the radio, just to notify them of that. And then this year I included that we had moved to the family service building so that they would have to find us a little easier. The payment options, we have 6 payment options for taxpayers to use. The escrow is the one that they pay to their mortgage company, and then the mortgage company directly pays the county for those. We have about 20% of our parcels are paid through that route. ACH is where they can enroll in a program and then I debit their bank account. And we have about 5% that pay that way. And that I actually did this morning, and that was about $740,000 done through that program. E-check and credit card that are on the county website or at our counter, they can do it either way. About 3.5% of the parcels are paid with that. And then in person and by mail, that is at 71.5% is the collection percentages on those.
Does the county charge a fee if they come in and use their credit card to make their tax payment?
There is a fee with the credit card and the e-check, but that is paid through the provider. I mean, we don't get those fees. It's done with the credit card company. So, and then it states what the amount is, and then that's paid. That the credit card company gets to keep that portion of it.
I always use e-check, it's not very much.
No, $1.50
Yeah,
is
that's what I was
what it is. to do
So
that.
when you debit the account though, there's no fee there.
No. And that work is done on the front side, so they have to fill out an application form to do that. They have to give us a check or a savings account number, and we verify that kind of thing. And so there's a little more babysitting with that, because people don't realize, like, if they close their account or open another one, they don't tell you, and then 6 months later, another one comes in, it will bounce back, and then you have to kind of figure that out. Or they sell it, and then they don't know or remember they left it on there, and then you do like an edit list, and then you see, and then some are moving it into the trust, or some are moving it from 2 spouses to 1, and then you're like, well, is that because they sold the property, or the one took it and the other one does, or are they just trying to financially, put some, so then you have to check back with them or follow up and all that kind of stuff on each time too. So that one is a little
But
bit,
that works so well. I've been on it since you started it.
yes, you have.
And you get an email the week prior to it saying on this day, we're gonna debit your account.
Yep.
And I'm never late.
No,
I-
yeah, there you go.
What's your email?
I remembered mine Sunday
got a
night, so I
couple.
went on and paid it.
On the property tax statements, you said you mail out about 17,000, so you got about $12,000 in postage. A lot of the younger people now like everything electronic. Have you had requests for the property tax statements to come electronically or not?
There has been some requests, but I think there's something in, either you have to provide it all that way, it's missing here. Oh, parts of here too. Do you guys remember off the top of your head what those requirements are?
You still have to provide paper. You still have to provide paper, but then if you're gonna do it one, you're gonna have to do them all.
Yeah, it was something
And
like it was,
With our community, it's
Yeah.
not.
we looked at that maybe
It's not there
4 years ago or something like that too. I mean, we have them on the website, so they
Yeah.
can
Yep.
view it there, but we can't consider that our mailing or like everybody got that. That's not a good enough to reach every base, so you can't.
The only reason I ask is I use my daughter as an example. I mean, they didn't even go to their mailbox. I send her a birthday card, I have to call her and tell her, hey, go to the
Check your mail.
mailbox.
They're just interested in Venmo. Get your money out, hit the button and say happy birthday. That's what I do.
But the young people don't. And I shouldn't say just young, but they seem to be more wanting the electronic.
Yeah. And this stuff is set by statute that you have to do it. So I mean, if it did something, it would change for the whole state or that kind of thing. And I know that Hennepin County had looked at that too, and that's kind of when we were talking, like, what basis do you have it, or how do you have to do it? Because you have to provide them a bill per se. You know, if they don't look at it there, or if you have the other people that only pick up their mail, but then you sent it but then you sent it by email, and you just send them a go to the website, this is how you find it, that kind of thing. I mean, but those are. all that. Okay, moving on. Okay, the tax collections and types and settlement periods. So we handle the collection of the current real estate, mobile home, delinquent real estate, delinquent mobile home, wind towers, transmission lines, and mineral interest. So those are the types of taxes that payments are made. The settlement periods where we disperse the monies that are done 4 times a year, which is for the cities, the townships, schools, special taxing districts. And those are done in May, October, November, and then January. So you have, 28 days before you have to have your money settled out and figured out who gets what portion, so that they go. And the one for January is to take care of what was collected in November through December. And those dates are also set by state statute. Vital statistics. So what is covered under vital statistics? Issuance of birth records, birth notification for parents. So when a baby is born in the Litchfield Hospital, we get a statement that states how they completed their birth record, and then we send that out for them to verify to make sure they were in the right mind when they were filling out their information, and everything that's on there is spelled correctly and the way they want it to be, because once birth record is issued, that's the way it is. Issuance of death records, that's both to individuals and for funeral homes. Marriage licenses, the marriage application license, those are for when people apply for a marriage, and then they only may be used in Minnesota. The certified copies of marriage record are the ones that we have on file, but you might need a copy for some type of proof, or if you're doing Social Security or something like that. Notary commissions, those are 5-year terms. Their signature are filed in our office. And then we also handle the clergy credentials and marriage credentials, which are when a minister is to marry a person, they have to file their paperwork in our office, both for clergy and then if there's outsiders, like an aunt and uncle or somebody like that, for Steve. And then, there's genealogy research in our office.
What, genealogy?
Yeah, where if people want to search their history or that kind of stuff, we help them figure out, like, well, I know I had an aunt or uncle from this time frame. I mean, we believe they were born like from 1920 to 1935 and that kind of stuff.
And you go back through the birth records and the marriage records and
Yeah.
death certificates and.
Yeah.
The notary, is this something that the county provides for our people?
It's done through the state, so they get they get it through the Department of Commerce, and then that form that they get stating that they are a notary has to be filed in the resident where they live. So then they bring that paperwork in to us, and then we file it. So if somebody goes to court and they don't believe that signature was a true notary, they could come back to where they said that it was filed, because we put where it is, what date, what time, and then we can verify that that is it, or they can compare that signature that's in that book to what is on that current document they have to make sure that it appears to be the notary that stated they were there at the time.
So if someone wants to be a notary republic, what is the criteria?
You just have to make application to the state. And that's pretty much, they give you a packet when you get it back to like normal practices or best practices, I would say. And then you bring the document that you got from them into our office, and then we file it in our book and notarize or put a seal on it that has been filed. And then you can use that to do that type of thing.
And a notary is licensed for how long a period? 5 years. It's a 5-year
Looking for a
licensure?
part-time job when you're done.
Yeah, I should be a notary.
Yeah. I'm curious, though, then if people from the public want to come in and they have a document that they need notarized, is that a free service here at the courthouse? And who would they come to?
Well, certain offices, we have a couple in ours, and there's other offices, I believe, like I think Monica might be one, and there might be down in Recorder.
Corey, you're one, aren't you?
So-
I think
Yep,
Corey's
I'm
one.
Yep, there's
Used her before.
different ones that.
Brandy's one.
Thank you.
Banks are another one that have it too, so.
What's a marriage amendment?
Um,
I'm kinda curious on that one. Looking for a loophole.
Moving ahead up.
Prenuptials? Yeah.
I was actually looking at the reduced fee. Is that half married or what?
yeah, maybe I should have you guys tell me what you think they are, and then I'll see how close you are. No, it might be kind of fun.
No, I don't think we wanna go there. That would be a good idea.
I do have a question though, like the death notices that we provide to funeral homes, we charge for them,
Yes,
right?
we do.
So how much do we charge? I'm just curious.
That is set by the state, but a death certificate, for the first one is $13, and of that 13, the county keeps 9 and the state gets 4. And then any additional copies gotten at the same time, because there's less work, all you do is you change it from 1 to whatever number they want, so that's like the thought process behind that. The additional copies gotten at the same time are $6, and then $2 of that stays at the county, and 4 of it gets sent to the state.
Don't ask how much a funeral.
And then they can charge,
And those are.
I'm not gonna ask that
Those
question.
are state statute
Yeah.
guided fees too, so.
But we
can-
charge for all birth records, everything, we have a fee for. I don't need to know what they are, but I know.
Yeah, well, the birth record is 26.
Yeah.
So the birth certificates, this was just for informational. In 2023, we issued 715. Year-to-date, as of the end of September, was 486. Death certificates, 305, and then 196. And then the additional, that's why there's so much more there, because when people pass away, usually from the funeral home, they'll get 20 right away, or 10, or depending on how many they need. So that number is higher there. And then 1162 for current year. The marriage certificate, that is when you come in to apply. So, or the certificate itself is when you're just getting a copy of, you're already married, you need a copy to prove that you're married. That's what those are for. The marriage license, there's 2 of them. So the license itself is $115, and then the reduced fee is $40. So that was a law that Steve Dill had put into place when he was in legislature, because divorce rate was so high. He wanted, if they had like premarital education then, and passed that, or not passed the course, but went through the course to have those conversations. I don't know if they had to pass, or if it was a pass-fail or not. But then if they had 12 hours or more. Of
My priest gave me a frowny look. Proved him wrong.
So that's where the reduced fee came in. So if they had that instruction, then it would be $40. And if they didn't have it, then it was $115. The marriage amendment, no, Danny.
Hold on, let me get this down.
That is at the time from when you apply to you get married. So say you said you're gonna change your name or your middle name, you're gonna put your last name to your middle name and drop your middle name and take on the new name or something like that. And then after you got home, you're like, I just don't know if I wanna do that. Maybe I'm gonna hyphenate it and move them both in the middle. Well, if the whole packet is done and given to you, if you change your mind and from that time when you apply to when you get married and you wanna bring it back in, and we have to find that one and then go back in and make those changes and print out all new documents with correct information on it, that's where the marriage amendment comes into play. So you can't do it after you're married.
Ah, so 17 years, you're not.
Or for Lisa.
Yeah, I know. She told me to write some notes, so.
Then the last two is the notary, which we kind of talked about already, and then passport photos. And the passport photos last year were 745, and this year were 247, but we moved those to the recorder's office as of June. So we no longer, so that was just as of that. And so all these fees are set by the state statute, except for passport photos and marriage amendment. Those are county-based fees, or those are on our fee schedule.
So I've never quite understood why they have to go downstairs to get a photo when they're up there doing it. They don't, they do, or?
No, now it's all in one area.
So now it's all
Yes, yeah.
misunderstood. Good, that's what, I'm glad to hear
Yeah,
that.
it's the other way
because-
around. We were doing it before, but now.
And then they
it's
were
all in one
going,
area.
but they had to go up and down.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep. Okay, and these last couple slides here are some statistics that I'm not sure if you're interested in or not, but I just thought I would share them. So these are 5 years worth of comparison. So the first one, it's a little cumbersome, but marriages or births to Meeker County mothers occurring in Meeker County. So that's like they lived here and they had their child born here. So that in 29, that was, or 2019, that was 87. So the next column over, births to county mothers occurring out of Meeker County. So they lived here, but then they had their baby maybe in Buffalo or something like that. So for 19, that was 131. And then the last one is for birth to non-residents occurring in Meeker County. So didn't live here, so lived in Buffalo, but came and had their baby in Meeker. So that just kind of shows you across the board, and it works that way for all the way down. So lived here, born here, and then all that kind of thing, just to kind of see where people are going over there.
Few babies this year, up a little bit.
It's interesting
23
too, kind of
is
how steady some of those numbers can be also. Then the last slide is for the deaths. So the same thing as before, it's the 5 years, but the first one is they lived and it occurred in Meeker County, so both lived in and died here. The second one is they lived, but it occurred outside, so maybe a different hospital or not in the county. And then the third one is they lived here, but it occurred outside. And then the last two are just kind of offshoots. Those are just how many marriage license applications there were. And then the last one is how many divorces there were. So
It's kind of funny you put deaths with marriage. I just think that's smart, actually.
Does your wife watch these meetings?
marriage.
She doesn't have to, she lives it every day.
Well, divorce rates are down, that's a good thing, huh?
Okay, well, that's all I had, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you,
It's
Sharon.
interesting.
Thanks, Sharon, yeah.
Well done. Well
Thanks,
done.
Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
All right, Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the only item I have for you today is the reappointment of Missy Voigt as our county assessor. So Missy was appointed as the county assessor in May of last year. Over the last 18 months, she's completed all the training educational requirements and has earned her SAMA. Additionally, she's been able to fully staff our office and complete the annual assessment, and I proudly recommend that we reappoint her as county assessor.
Have our taxes gone up since she's been assessor?
A lot. Mr. Chair, I move to approve a resolution reappointing Melissa Voigt as county assessor.
Motion made by Ober,
I'll second that.
second by Bredesen. Any further questions? This is a resolution, so Cory?
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bredesen,
Yes.
Commissioner Olberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Schiefelbein.
Yes. Motion carries. And congratulations, Missy, another year,
Another 4 years.
Another
4 years.
Yeah.
Just like the
Is
commission.
that what it said? Oh, all right. 4 years. All right. Moving on. Administrators report.
Yeah, real brief today, as was kind of indicated earlier, open enrollment started this week. So for any staff who's watching, please complete it. For any board members who are here, please complete your open enrollment. We don't want Mikkel coming after any of us. That includes me. And then as a reminder, we do have a work session next week. That is my report.
Question for the
Sure.
administrator. I saw the progress report on the, what about the windows?
What about the
Well,
windows?
they're still plastic.
Well, they will not be in the future. They will be glass.
I know, but
They,
normally you do drywall after the windows are in, that's why.
they, obviously they haven't been installed yet, but it's in the plan to have them be installed. I don't have a specific time frame in front of me. So,
It's good to know they're not gonna be plastic, though.
yes.
You knew that, didn't you, Paul?
Jesus.
Just checking.
Oh, you were waiting for that shot, weren't you?
But the work session next week is gonna be some of the remodel project, give you all an update of kind of where we're at, with the schedule, the budget, and what we expect to see coming up in the next, several months. So,
Okay. Any other questions for Andrew? No shots, Beth? Okay, moving on. Commissioner updates. Committee updates. Start with Beth.
Oh, come on, now, start the other end, I'm not prepared.
You're not ready? Anybody else want to go?
Hold on.
Yeah. Am I going or?
You can go,
We
All
can
right.
start down on this end, we're always ready.
All right.
whatever.
Well, about that, MRC had a Minnesota Rural Counties meeting on the 7th up in Alexandria, the annual meeting, actually. Chair Luke Johnson has turned out, and Neil Peterson, Commissioner Peterson from Pennington County is elected to the chair, and I got elected to vice chair. Currently, they have 4 one-year terms, and we proposed they're going to 2 two-year terms, just leaving the length, overall length the same, but in 1 year, you don't necessarily, you're just getting comfortable, so we're gonna do that by the end of the year, probably at the December meeting with AMC. Then I also had AMC Zoom that afternoon, basically on reviewing the platform before we had yesterday, district meetings with AMC. And they wanted to get the priorities finalized before we started them district meetings. So that was that Zoom meeting. Then that Wednesday the 9th, had a child care meeting with Andrew was there and over at Meeker Electric Co-op. And just to kind of regroup with Lisa Graffentine and revisit, I think they had 380 daycare spots open right now in the county.
Yep.
That was down from roughly 500
Yep.
2 years or so prior. So there has been some progress there, but of course, still a lot of talk around too many regulations for in-home daycares and people just not wanting to do that. Go through all the hoops, if you will, jump through all the steps and hoops to do in-home daycare. So a lot of people looking to retire from that, and not too many new ones coming into it. So just kind of more of a brainstorming session and a little bit of talk about Stevens County model where they built some basically one-bedroom patio homes and put daycares in them, allowed people to come in and lease them to put daycares in them, and then if it ever goes sideways or whatever, you can just sell it as like a regular home. So it's something to,
Is that,
people don't need to upgrade their home, but then it's built for daycare dual purpose, so.
are they full?
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
6 of them.
6. Yeah, they're actually
I
looking to build
remember,
more.
I haven't been to a meeting for a long time, but,
Yeah.
I remember when they built them and it was a good
Yeah.
idea, I guess.
Yeah,
So did they get fund, the county did Stevens County put?
Stevens County put up the capital initially. They used ARP money to do that.
Okay,
And they did an RFP with developers where they said, this is the money that we have. what can you build us for this money? And they got
Okay.
proposals back and
That's
worked
really
with the
good.
developer to do it, so.
Cool.
All right, and then we've also the 10th and 11th, last Thursday and Friday, we had, union negotiations and, we're moving along quite well on them. In my
Yeah, we're doing great.
perspective, we're, got some tentative agreements on the table, so, that we feel we're doing well in that area. I have another one tomorrow, I think with the county attorneys is tomorrow, if I remember right.
Yep.
And yesterday, up in Brainerd, we had the District 5 meeting. Me and Paul were up there, a lot of preliminary budgets, a lot of them in that 5-7 range, on their budgets. So we feel pretty good at our preliminary. Other things, there was a grant put on, do you remember where that grant was coming from again? It's, McKnight.
McKnight,
There we
yes.
go. I knew I couldn't think of the name, but the McKnight Foundation is, they're looking to do some grant work or grant writing for counties. So that's something we'll be watching for in the future.
That gave us 2 interns at AMC?
Yep.
2? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Other than that, Paul, I'm trying to think what else.
Well, one of
really-
the interesting things.
I know I'm forgetting.
Was, we just got done talking about daycare, when Tina Dietrich explained, there are very few companies that will insure someone
Oh.
who has in-home daycare, and it's extremely expensive if they do. So another
Even if they're
roadblock.
licensed?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
yes.
And I didn't really, Tina had, she's commissioner from Wright County, had done foster care and
Yeah.
and daycare and stuff. I don't know if she had that history behind her, so she talked at length about that, so.
And then, some of the counties are just now learning about ditches.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and also, and broadband comes up nearly all the time too, so we're fortunate there, so. But that's about all I had. A busy couple weeks, actually.
All right, thanks, Steve. Paul?
Had a Prime West meeting, which we did, once again, in the month of August, we lost 1.3 million, partially due to enrollment being down, and the cost of services now, because how DHS sets what they pay is they use a 2-year look-back period. So we're in that, we're kind of in that time frame when it's the costs that we're incurring and what they're paying, they don't match. Now, when we go to the next budget cycle, the 2-year look back will be for 23, 24, which will be much higher. And so then at the beginning of that one, we'll catch back up to what we've lost. We're still very, very solid with cash position. RBC is excellent and we're in a good position, but we are going to probably lose some money for the next few months.
Which we had planned on when
We
this
had planned on.
switched, and so they're prepared for that. I don't
Yep.
think it's just so unusual, I wasn't at the
I know.
meeting, but it's unusual to go to a Prime West meeting and hear about a red figure. It happens not very often.
Not very often, no. Then I had a PAC-4 meeting, which was held right here in Litchfield. And what we had done was a little something different at this PAC meeting. We invited all of the candidates for office to attend so that we could educate them on what PAC-4 does. And we had Dawn Gilman, Scott Van Binsberg was there, Dean Herdahl was there, and Dawn Gilman. So we had a really nice opportunity to talk to them about what PAC does and give them a little education on that. And had a little chance to speak with them about issues that are important to us. And of course, we don't know if Scott or Dawn will be there next year, but in all likelihood, if they are, they'll be educated as to what we do, so. Then on Friday, we were down in Redwood Falls for the Southwest 18. It was their annual meeting. Beth came along. She is the alternate, so we both were there. Of the 18 counties, we passed our JPA, but 6 of the 18 had not. So they came to the meeting, we were prepared to do an election of officers and get the ball rolling, start working on finalizing the bylaws. But we have 6 left to bring a signed agreement from their boards to this. So now we have a meeting on November the 8th, right? November 8th,
I believe,
of which it sounds like all 18 will have signed.
so most of it was timing or a couple of small questions
Yeah.
when you have different county attorneys with different, how it is. I think they're all gonna get signed. If somebody wouldn't sign, they're gonna have to start at square one.
Yeah.
which wouldn't be-
Well, there's so many little things, and I'm sure County Attorney Schiefelbein will say, you change anything's different, now you gotta go back to all the boards with, and have it reapproved. So it's kind of important that this entire 18 group.
I had a Renville County Commissioner tell me years ago, do not ever send anything out to all different county attorneys, cause you're gonna get all these different answers. But of course you have to, it's involved, but.
So we look forward to the 8th to be able to then have an organizational meeting and get rolling the way it's laid out in the joint powers agreement. So as Steve indicated yesterday, we were at the Crow Wing County for a meeting, which was interesting when I looked. And I'm just gonna use this to say thank you to our department heads, our administrator, and Steve and Danny, because when I look at this, and I'll pass it around in case anybody wants to see it, some of those levies, Anoka, 16.8 for their levy. Chippewa is at 10%. Kuchijing, 25.18. However, we gotta remember, it's a very, very, very small county, so they have a small budget. And then Wilkin County at 14.3. Our 3.5 looks very good. And it was pretty much a normal meeting. I don't think anything, we talked about cannabis, but nobody seems to be hearing a lot about cannabis in their communities as far as generating a lot of interest. Maybe Stearns had the most, but nobody was really.
Everybody, it's pretty quiet in general around that was one of their questions, is anybody really hearing much? It's, in general, it's been real quiet.
Yeah.
As far as requesting for permits or information even, so.
So,
Most of the cannabis people are pretty chill anyway, so,
Why would that be?
I don't know.
Because our meetings are in the morning.
Yeah,
Meetings are what?
late morning probably.
We've seen a couple of inquiries, but nothing significant.
so then the last thing, while Steve and I were sitting there, last year we did take a door prize to the annual meeting. I think you might have put that together for us, didn't you, Corey?
I probably did.
You did?
And I think, did we all chip
Great
in
job.
that? Was the way it
I
went?
don't remember.
I don't
Oh, I
remember.
do remember.
We all chipped in on that.
Yes, I think everyone chipped in $20.
Okay, and I thought,
Just the
let's
people
talk
who
about
go.
it now, so if you guys wanna do it again, Corey has plenty of time to gather some goodies for it.
I'd be happy to.
And, some things that, it looks nice for our county, most of the county, a lot of the counties.
Are you
bring
asking for
something.
$20, Paul?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
So bring $20 for the next meeting,
I might have it on me right now,
or give it to Corey now.
or I'll give you plastic. It's bad.
I think the other thing we should mention, Neil Galswick, the president, AMC Cass County Commissioner, did give a little talk on the raising the dues at the beginning, and that's, they're presenting that through all district meetings just to make sure everybody's aware that, this is what they're thinking, and they don't want any county feeling like they didn't have the opportunity to speak, so.
When you sit there and I don't care what topic comes up, and you have a young man by the name of Matt,
Ilgert?
he knows so many details about every single thing that we're fighting for as counties. And it's just amazing to me. We just can't afford to lose someone like that. We have to be able to pay a competitive wage.
And Jill Surmeyer, who was she was research, right? Head of research, she's the assistant administrator to Stearns County. Now they hired, so she's starting like real soon.
A couple weeks.
Yeah, so they already did lose
Yeah.
somebody to Stearns, so.
But it's just, you know, we have such, he's a great fighter for us, Matt is. It's just so much knowledge. So
And
much.
and on the dues, did they ever come with an exact number? I think it's 2,500, is that?
$2,000 increase is what we
Okay,
see.
is what was proposed for us, okay.
So we currently pay about 15,000, so it'd be about 17,000.
Okay, I wasn't sure what the final, if they actually settled on a number yet.
Yeah. Yeah, they were, for each county, they were looking at doing a 10% increase or $2,000, whichever is greater.
Oh, that's right,
And
that's right,
for us, that was 2,000.
okay.
And the whole meeting, they kept on saying, Julie Ring was not there. This is something, we're on schedule, we're on schedule, we're on schedule. They get to the end, they're way past. And they had, so, didn't work. No, it was an
was a good
interesting
meeting.
meeting. Yep. And the spring one is June 9th in Morrison County.
Sounds good.
Well, it's right here, I got it looking right here.
Oh, was that a quiz then? Why are you looking at me?
That's it.
All right, move on. Beth?
So I had a hospital finance meeting last week. We went over the 23 numbers. They look well. I'm not gonna quote them because I don't have them in front of me and don't remember them. But we finished in the black, which is good with rural hospitals nowadays. Nicole does a good job. Our new CFO was there, some input with him. We had a discussion about the remodel and no figures yet on adding the clinic. But I think we are gonna try to get the pharmacy started as soon as we can, cause that's a project that we've talked about for a while, so. I think that was about all the news from there. Then I had a CHB exec meeting and we talked about, the budget, and I think the recommendation is gonna be 3% COLA. And then, for the people that are at the top of the scale, we're gonna recommend a $50 a month, salary stipend to them because they don't get, the steps, so. And then, Kaiser does some evals with her employees and they get, it's kind of based on like Andrew does it. And, we talked about the budget, which will become before our regular meeting, which is the 31st, I believe, is our full board meeting. And then I also went to the consortium meeting with, Paul, that was interesting. The annual meeting before the commissioner meeting had, since I've never been to one, there was some interesting information about housing, what they provide on different programs, and they had a handout for that that was interesting. And I think that's all I had.
All right, thanks, Beth. Julie?
Well, I'm pleased to report that I have nothing to report.
Oh,
I don't think it's ever happened before. Look at this little skinny piece of paper.
we should celebrate that for
Your
sure.
check back this
We
week.
are.
Yeah,
I mean,
But it's been
All
a
right.
week full of harvesting. That's wonderful. And
Oh, that's why we have the pumpkin bars. Andrew just figured it out.
yeah, we've been in the throes of harvest and field work. And I just want to emphasize, please be patient when you're approaching or following farm equipment. Please be safe. We all share the roads. So it's been a very, very busy week, but not full of meetings, which was much appreciated. I have the Pioneer Land Library meeting coming up now this week. We'll have a work session on the 22nd. Beth and I will have the 3-county public health meeting coming up the following week, and that's my report.
all right, thank you, Julie. As Steve indicated, we had 2 union days, negotiations, no fistfights, so we're coming along nicely. Of course, attorneys are tomorrow, so we'll see what happens there. I had a Kingston Township meeting last night, talking about their Salisbury Bridge, and I also went to a Friday night football game. I have to put that in there. Kimball Cubs beat the evil Ean Valley Watkins with about 2,000 people in attendance, so it was a record-sized crowd,
But
so.
let's not forget to mention, I'd come out too for the first time in 25 years that you beat them.
Ah, yeah, exactly.
I had to mention that.
Yeah, happened to be
The
that,
nice part was they were both undefeated.
Yep.
So it was a big game, and it was homecoming for Kimball.
Homecoming.
no, it was a great game. It was a really great game for, and I think the kids, at least for Kimball, enjoyed it. But it was a great atmosphere, though. It's nice to see that kind of rivalry out there and stuff, and it was just nice to see.
And
So,
I'm sure they'll see each other in the playoffs.
I know, unfortunately, yes, so. Then I probably won't have an update.
One thing, Paul, we didn't mention, we actually did vote on priorities too for, for the annual meeting coming up in December for AMC yesterday. So they give you all the priorities and you just put an X by them and then they rank them. And then they do that through all the district meetings, and then them are the ones that, then they show them scores at the annual meeting in December, so them are what our AMC will bring that platform, to the legislators and stuff, so.
That'll more than likely be shared then in an email with
Yeah,
everyone.
and
They
the
they
update
have their
as
like
they-
little newsletter things.
Yeah, you'll get
Okay.
a district email and then you'll get a AMC email too, so yeah, it'll be in there.
Very good.
Simple.
I did forget to mention, we voted
December
on priorities.
11th.